Did you notice that everybody in this passage got healed? Everybody got healed. They asked, and Jesus healed them. There was no conditional healing. There was no tit for tat, no trade. You give God this, God gives you that. Everybody was healed. Everybody was healed. And to be healed of leprosy is not simply to be healed of a disease, but it's to be healed of something that actually prevents you from being in community. Did you catch in the story? They asked Jesus for healing from a distance. They didn't come up to him, they didn't touch him. Because when you had this particular disease, and we're not actually sure what this disease was, leprosy was a blanket term for a lot of skin diseases. But when you had whatever this was, you were no longer clean. You could no longer be a part of your community. You were exiled from your family, from your friends, from your place of worship. And so, when they want the healing from God, they ask from a distance because they know that that's safe. And the first thing that Jesus does isn't make them clean. What he says is, go back to your community. Go back to your people. Go back to the priests who can signal to everybody else, because that's the way it worked, can signal to everybody else that you are welcome to come back home. And without pause, they turn themselves around and head back. They head to a place where they have been unwelcome in the confidence of knowing that they will be accepted, and on the way, they are made clean. Jesus expects nothing from them, asks nothing of them. That is the work of God in the world. The making of community, the rebuilding of relationships, the recognition that something has separated us from our loved ones, our family, our friends, our society, and rebuilding them. As I have spent some time reading about Myrtle Carr, Google Myrtle Carr. She shows up in the news a lot. She died at 102. She started her career here in Portland by volunteering for the Urban League for voter drives in the 50s, late 40s, early 50s. That picture on the front of the bulletin is her at a gas station getting a signature, and we think that picture is taken sometime in the early 50s. We don't actually know. It's on one of the historical websites. She spent her life committed to creating communities where people would be welcome. And in her life, and in the life of the Urban League, that often looked a lot like showing a mirror to the society around them that said, you have set up systems and practices that are unjust, that declare us, people with dark skin, as unclean and unwelcome. And that's wrong. She dedicated her life to that. She worked for the Urban League for over 36 years. When I met her, she was 98, 97. I went over to her house. I was bringing her some food. she's sitting at the table, and she is a very small and petite little woman. I suspect some of that was due to age. And I sat down at her table in front of her picture window, looking over her front yard, and she had the newspaper in front of me, or her. And I asked her, how she's doing. She says, "I'm fine. I'm curious how you're voting." Well, I'm sorry, for who? Well, Joanne Hardesty is running, and I have some opinions. Well, I have to say that was one of the most interesting conversations I have had. She wasn't interested in small talk and niceties. She was interested in the politics of Portland at 97, 98. She was fully engaged in her community. And in the community that she had fought for to create relationships where people were welcome, where they were treated with respect and dignity. That was her life, and that is what she was interested in. That is what shaped who she was. And sometimes it's good for us to be grateful. Jesus' healing of all 10 of those lepers was not dependent on anything that they did, other than maybe asking. But the one who came back was the one who understood what it was to be unwelcome, not simply because of his disease, but because he was a foreigner. That's how Jesus describes this Samaritan man. The assumption is that the other 9 were probably Jewish or a part of what was considered legitimate Judaism. Samaritans were Jews, just a different form and a different branch. But those 9 were headed back to their home in Galilee and likely ultimately to Jerusalem, where the priests were to be declared clean. And they knew that they would be welcomed back. But this Samaritan, he could not go to Jerusalem. He would have had to go to their own temple. He understood what it was to be on the outside in a way that perhaps those 9 others didn't quite get. And so he stopped. And he said, "Thank you." Because there is something about not only being healed, but being grateful for our healing, being grateful for the ways in which God's love and abundant care and grace kind of spills out, whether we get it or not, whether we say the right words or do the right prayers or come to the right churches or synagogues or mosques or whatever it is. There's something about when the grace of God, the healing of God, permeates and fills our lives. There's something about taking a moment to be grateful that turns that healing of body into a wholeness, a healing of body and mind and soul that is able to love and be grateful for the world that God has given us, even in the midst of brokenness. That is why we are being grateful for Myrtle today. For the work that she has done in the community that all of us have benefited from in some form or other. Some of us walked alongside her at 102. Most of us probably watched her as youth. But we are grateful. We are grateful for the work of those who have gone before us. Our beloved ancestors and saints in the faith who have spread a little bit of God's justice and mercy and grace and joy and abundance into the world around us. We are grateful. We know it is incomplete. We know there is more work to do. But we are grateful. One of the things I asked Margaret to do this morning is, you know how we've been having these cards that we've been sending out to our many folks who are not well and not able to join us at church. I would like over the next few weeks to actually send thank you cards. To send thank you cards to all the people who make this place happen. To all the people who make the things go that just need to go. There's Erwin who takes the trash out every Tuesday. He shows up. There's Pat and Sue who do the Saturday lunch. There's Vivian and Paula who make the church beautiful on a regular basis. There's Burke who shows up despite the fact that his wife has multiple broken bones and is fine, shows up to do tech. There's Bree who showed up to do backup tech in case Burke wasn't able to be here. There's the musicians who gather every other Tuesday to practice singing more participatory music so we can all join in. There's Pat and there's Bernadine who make sure that we have food. And the danger of me actually naming people is that I am sure that I have not named some people and y'all are going to be offended or remind me, and I apologize for that. But we need to express gratitude. We need to be a community shaped by gratitude because there's something about receiving God's healing and being grateful that makes us just a little more like the God in whose image we have been created. So be grateful today for the work of Myrtle. Be grateful today that it is beautiful outside and it is not yet 82 degrees. My gratitude will stop at 78 degrees. Sorry. That's just true about me. Be grateful for the cup of coffee, for the warm hand, the smile, the moment to just be here for a little while. Be grateful. Name that gratitude. And know that as you become a more grateful person, you are becoming more and more like the God in whose image you have been created. Amen.